Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. So on today's podcast, I've got a really, really lovely guest that I sat with at the Green Fleet Awards last year, so December last year. It was, wasn't it? And it's Lawrence Della Valle. And he is the, I've got it right. And he is the Chief Operating Officer at PayThru. Now, Lawrence was introduced to me really through Sarah Sloman, who we've also had on the podcast really early on, who also works for PayThru. She's what's it, Chief Strategy Officer, I think.
Yeah,
now?
she is. Yeah, CSO.
Absolutely.
Really
so we were on the same table at the Green Fleet Awards, and we had a wonderful chat. And actually, Lawrence has never been on a podcast before, so you've been slightly nervous. But for all of you who are watching and listening, you know what my podcasts are like. I just chat to people.
Podcast virgin, I think that's what.
Listen, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so pleased we've been able to sort this date out. Thank you ever so much for joining me. So let's go a little bit of your background here. So I'm just going to read this. So you've worked for PayThru for a year.
Yep.
You were previously at Ulster Bank, and before we started recording this, you called yourself a career banker.
Yeah.
Now,
well, Ulster probably is what's on my LinkedIn, but I was Royal Bank of Scotland and Bank of Scotland, and for most people they are two complete banks.
Yeah.
But I spent sort of over 20 years in the banking sector, which was where I clocked up all my diesel and petrol miles from.
I bet.
And I used to have this badge of honour that I could do 30,000 miles in a year and still survive. Then I went to Infinium Logistics, which was a really interesting move for me. I went from RBS to Countrywide. I was head of director of operations for Countrywide.
Okay.
And that's really where you just get stuff done. And so that's really what I do today. You know, forget the title. You know, our job is to get stuff done. And then I went to Infinium Logistics, and I worked for a very great colleague of mine, James Lee, who was the chairman at the time, and sort of parked thousands of Amazon vans. And that's when I met Keith Brown, who I'd known of before, and he said, will you come and help me do some work at PayThru? And I sort of turned up. We had a great meeting in Taunton, and I met Keith and Sarah, and then I came over and joined PayThru. Yeah. So and as my CFO says, Jonathan Backey says, Lawrence, our job is just to get stuff done. So that's what I do. So fancy title, but
Perfect. Well, you've got to do it, haven't you? Especially in this sector. So we were just talking about before we start recording. We were just talking about the fact that we're both of us are fairly newish to driving EVs, aren't we? You're 6 months. I'm coming about the 5 months ish. So what you've just said about your badge of honour as a what was it? Were you a diesel driver then, or were you a petrol driver?
Bit of both, but mainly, yeah. I would pride myself by being in Manchester in the morning and then be in a black tie do in the evening, in London, and and then every journey that repeated journey was timed to the minute. Got to get there in 2 hours 56 minutes. So and that's all changed. So since becoming EV, and also because of a bit of COVID, Liz, there's all of that sort of blended in. So so the banking world's changed. They've changed too, but my driving habits have changed significantly since driving an EV. There's no doubt about it.
Go on, tell me the way how have you changed then? Because I know how I've changed too.
I think the funniest thing was my first experience. Being a typical, bloke, the car turns up, and the guy said, "Do you want me to show you around?" I said, "No, it'd be fine. I'll work this one out." So anyway, within 20 minutes, he'd exited, and I stood there looking at this white Model Y Tesla in front of me, and I realised I didn't know how to unlock it. or lock it. So I phoned a friend and said, "Just remind me again," and that was okay. But I think the first evening I was like a new father with a newborn. I literally went outside to check on it to make sure it was locked. And then unlike sort of, I've always driven German cars, and so it was relatively straightforward. All the functionality is there, and then you suddenly realise I've just got 2 sticks, 2 dials, and that's it, and an iPad. And then of course, because I need glasses sometimes to read my computer screen, I realised that the iPad was slightly too far away. And the whole transition from, I think Sarah said to me, Sarah Sloman, she said, "Lawrence, you've gone from the hardest thing. You've gone from a German manufactured car to a computer, into this virtual world." Yeah. And so that transition, so the early part of the journey was really quite interesting. It was quite funny, actually. And I was charging this morning, getting it all charged up, because I've got a couple of journeys. I'm sure we'll come onto it, but I'm starting to master it now. I was talking to somebody this morning. He said, "I'm really looking forward to getting an electric car." I said, "You've got to come in mine." So, but it's a bit like a spaceship. Everybody wants to come in it and, see what they're like. So, and that's more about the electricity side of it.
It is a real change, and I don't know. I've got to say, I wasn't like you when I got the EV. I did try and get the guy to show me, most things. I want to know about this. I want to know about that. But that's why this podcast exists, because I've learned a lot of things about EVs throughout this podcast. And actually, so there were certain things that tell me a bit about how's the regenerative braking, and he was saying about there's a paddle on here and and actually, so I did this on my own. I didn't get the manual, like in the olden days, you get the manual out, yeah. So we did get that out occasionally, but I surfed the net to kind of ask, find out various things. And also, it was kind of connecting the app. The app was connected to the previous owner still, the Blue Link app for Hyundai, and that was a little bit, taxing to start off with. And it was just things like that. In fact, me and my son, my 18-year-old, we sat in the car, and he's surfing. He's kind of looking for stuff because he's very good at that kind of thing. It's that age, and he's going to, right, Mum, you do this. Mum, you do that. You set up a profile like this and that. And I was like, okay.
My son was exactly the same. We went to a wedding. First time he had sat in the car, I left him for 10 minutes. The next minute, my profile was Santa Claus driving around the road.
Love it.
So, yeah. So, it'll be their generation. There's no doubt about it.
They are going to be, when, how old's your son?
25.
Okay, so that is the kind of things that, my son's a big gamer. Do you know what I mean? And driving something like, I've only been in a Tesla a couple of times myself. I'd love to be able to test drive it. One, if anybody from Tesla's listening.
Come with me.
Oh yeah, I could do that.
Sarah's, and obviously I always stick within speed limit. I said to Sarah, there's 2 comments, and Sarah Sloman said to me, "Lawrence, drive it as if you stole it."
I've heard that phrase.
But they're for not. I think it's changed the way I've had to think work.
Mm-hmm. For the better?
Oh, definitely so. Definitely as a personally. I hear sort of lots of anecdotes about people not liking them. My stepfather said to me one day, he said, "They should have these slide out batteries." I'm thinking, do you know how big these batteries will need to be to slide out? but I think once you get inside them and you sort of get to feel them and understand them, I think they're really they're quite exciting actually.
They
I was
are.
going to say sexy, but there's something, it's small things. What you mean? I can charge my car at home. I don't have to go to a filling station anymore. And it's small things like that which you suddenly realise, so I don't have to consume 40 Mars bars. Other confectionaries available, but I don't have to consume Mars bars anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have to drive the quarter of a mile to the petrol station. So that's changed. And this morning I did one of my calls from the car whilst I was charging. And those are the small things which have changed me commercially. And so rather than saying, no, I have to be at my desk between 9 and 5 because that's what I'm employed to do, I go, I've got to do a journey, I've got to get to, I don't know, tomorrow I'm in Amersham, then I'm in Richmond, I'm going to see my colleagues at Infinium, and the car's fully charged. I don't get range anxiety because I've planned. It's one of those 2 P's, prior planning. And and I like it, and it's big, and it's and you can see people looking at it saying, oh, that's a Tesla. So really interesting. And I think the tech is changing really quickly. Frosty mornings, heated steering wheel.
Yeah, I love it.
Can't do that in a diesel. Can't do that in a petrol car. So
No,
But
and
when
actually,
I have the moral badge that I can, I'm not polluting more, and I can drive into central London if I want to. It's all those sort of things.
absolutely. Frosty mornings again. Not just the heated steering. It's actually been able to. I was talking about this to somebody recently. It's actually been able to do the remote defrost as well. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh, it's just mad, isn't it? It's just.
It's the small things which you don't realise there's the value and the benefit from, but I think also there's a massive fear factor. We all take it for granted how to get in a car and start it. My first car, Liz, was a Fiat 500. So that the traditional ones where you had to pull a lever up. So you turn the electrics on, they had to pull a lever up, which ignite, and it felt like driving a Spitfire. And so here I am now, not touching anything, just punching in a key and and pushing the accelerator pedal. That's it. It's like driving a Scalestri car, really.
Actually, do you know, I don't know your age. I'm not going to ask. My first car was a Talbot. My first car was a Talbot Sunbeam.
Oh yeah, okay.
It was just awful. And then I had another. So somebody bumped me. I had a Vauxhall Cavalier as well. The typical. Somebody bumped into me, and I had to have it repaired. And I don't know why. I bought a Daihatsu Charade for about 50 quid or something ridiculous.
We've all done those purchases.
Yeah, one of those you pay for what you get. So this was, you couldn't even get in through the driver's side. I had to climb in through the passenger side. I was just shocking. So I've had some shocking cars. Even in the Cavalier, I used to have to take a spare battery to work at one point.
Okay.
And swap the battery over. So
this can be a regular theme. The most shocking car you've driven. Mine was a Granada. It had a vinyl roof.
Oh, nice.
Whiplash aerial.
Oh.
And it had a bumper sticking saying "I love beer" on it. It was I was a Royal Naval officer at the time, and I would drive to Dartmouth, and if I got it in the wrong gear, the gear stick would come out. I could stick it back in.
No.
The split pin came out, and after a while, I just worked out how to get the gear stick back in and carry on driving. But there we are. So, and now it's just accelerate.
Just do it. Yeah.
And off you go.
Yeah, there are some, like you say, there's some amazing vehicles out there. So tell me about, I know you said you get stuff done at PayThru. What stuff do you get done? Can you explain a little bit about, and I know Sarah said this before, can you explain about what, during the charging journey for somebody like me and you, where is PayThru's involvement then?
Yeah, so we're the invisible part, Liz. The people things that people don't see. I sort of quite often have, you're at the dinner party and people say, "What do you do?" And I say, "Well," and it's simplifying the journey. I said, "But and depending who my audience is, I'll say, well, when you go to Aldi, Marks Spencer's, John Lewis, wherever, and you tap your card, we do that payment gateway in between that, and it's checking with your bank, it's doing all those clever little things behind the scenes which we just take for granted whenever we're shopping, and we do that with parking charges. That's our niche, that's our sector. We've got some other specialisations we've been doing historically. We've worked in debt management and making the customer journey really easy. I think for us, that payment journey, the customer journey that is so seamless, that's the piece that we work on, concentrate on. So we've got a lot of expertise and specialisation in the parking sector, and we've worked in the EV sector now for a number of years, and so our job is to try and make it more user-friendly, simpler, and also to look ahead, to look into the future and say, what are the payment journeys that we need to get right for everybody? I mean, I've never had range anxiety, and I've never had. I've had it once. I had to go down to the West Country. We had a bereavement in the family, and to cut a long story short, I was sort of down to my last 58 miles. And I knew that the closest place I could get a proper charge fast was 35 miles away.
Gosh,
And that
okay.
was Tesla charging bank down in Exeter. So I ended up, to be fair, going to a McDonald's and using a set of chargers, which is fine. But of course, I didn't know how much. I didn't know, was it going to work? I didn't know whether I was going to get a charger. So I had all those things. So I take it for granted. I pull into a petrol station, pull a nozzle out, stick it in, and 8 minutes later I'm done.
Yeah.
And I needed to finish that day and come back to Birmingham. So I had to find 150 miles quickly, and that was the only time I've sort of had it. And so what happens if my card doesn't work? What happens if the payment terminal doesn't work? Is it me? Is it the terminal? How do you know that? Whereas for all of us who drive petrol cars or diesel cars, we just walk into the kiosk, you put your PIN in, or you speak to the lady behind the counter or the man behind the counter, and you're done. And I think when we're chatting, this was like a lot of us take it for granted because we're in the sector, what you go through. But if I then look at sort of my parents or friends of, they know how to fill a car with fuel. That's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Now transition to an electric vehicle where everything has changed. A cable, a lead. What happens if if I can't take the cable out? What do you do? Who do you call? This is quite a funny story. I was in Banbury one evening. We'd come back from holiday, and Elizabeth and I were sitting in the car. And the next minute, there was this bang on the window. So I was charging the car, and this woman started knocking on the window. I was and she said, "Can you help me? Can you help me?" I said,
Yes.
"What?" And she says, "I don't know how to charge my car." So and there you are. So it must have been around about 9 o'clock at night, 9:30, and she was travelling back from a family event, and she was in a non-Tesla, and of course what she needed to do was download the app and go through that, and it was like a 15-minute journey. Forget about charging, and they're some of the small things people have to overcome, and there's no, like you said, there's no manual. There's no manual. This is how you do it. So we sort of rely on the charge point operators, the manufacturers, and ourselves to make that journey really seamless and easy. And I'm quite lucky. I can have the Tesla experience, and then I can then have the normal experience where I plug in. And there's some great CPOs out there who are getting it absolutely right. But that's what we do. We do, when you can think of me every time you go to a supermarket and touch your card. What PayThru do is that magic bit in the middle, you know.
Okay. I was gonna say, just going back to what you're saying about the Tesla and the Tesla experience. For those who haven't got Teslas, it's the plug and charge. It's the Tesla handshake, isn't it? There's a handshake where the charger recognises the car because you kind of set it up, don't you?
Yeah.
And the handshake is
It's easy.
that you just plug in, and you could. So for you guys who are able to use, I know that there's less chargers on the Tesla supercharger network. When you're there, if you can use that, then I can imagine it would just be. In fact, I'm saying that I was with Colin Boyton for just a little bit of the EV rally last year, Greenfleet EV rally, and he went to a Tesla supercharger at a hotel, and I was absolutely flabbergasted. You know, it was just so simple. We'd actually been to a couple of chargers. At another couple of places in Heathrow, and actually neither of these chargers worked. Found one locally and went to this Tesla supercharger at this hotel, and I just couldn't believe it, you know. So the experience for a Tesla driver is very different to the lady that you saw in Banbury, wouldn't it?
Oh,
You know,
it was, and I think, can I say there's a duty for all of us to get that journey seamless. You know, the pre-authorization. You know, we all go to hotels and we've checked in. They say, "Sir, can I take a pre-authorization?" You know, you're not going to be charged for it. You get that, but not. You know, and certainly some pressure from the marketplace. You know, I've charged a couple of times and someone's taking me £30 each time.
yeah,
You know, the demographics say that most people who drive electric vehicles probably can afford it. There'll be a moment in time when that's not always the case. And that's all about sort of unattended retail. You know, that's a different podcast in its own right.
yes,
But you know, there is the experience of plug and play, plug and charge. It's seamless, and then there's download the app. Oh, my card's failed. Is it me? It's the terminal. There's no other charge point. What do I do? It's, you know, so. But I think, you know, we're all on this journey. We're all on this journey, the EV journey together. There's no doubt about it.
I was going to say, so my very first public charging experience was pretty chronic, to be honest, because I went to a hotel, and it was a posh hotel. It was lovely. There were 5 charging units outside with 10 connectors. It said that 2 of them were working. When I looked at it, there was 1 working, and could I get it to work? No. And then actually the pre-authorization, it charged me 3 or 4, I think I did 3 or 4 attempts, and after that I just thought I can't try this anymore. I'll find another charger that is not at this hotel. I went to the hotel reception and they were, sorry, we can't do anything about it. It's it doesn't belong. Sorry, it's not that it wasn't belonging to them. It was run by the charge point operator, but actually the reputational damage for them
falls onto the absolutely,
because people don't. They just see chargers there, don't they?
Yeah.
They just expect them to work.
These are your chargers. They're on your land. They must be yours. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't work like that. And there was no signage to kind of provide that information. It's just it was a pretty crap kind of first experience, I've got to say. And actually, I think we tweeted about it or put it on Instagram and kind of tagged in the charge point manufacturer. Yeah. And they were straight on the phone to me afterwards, trying to find out what was going on, you know.
And I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because we talked earlier on about what did the journey look like, and having, again, feeling relatively privileged here and going to some of the events and organisations, and you realise that it's the chargers, the technology will change, the chargers will change.
They will. Yeah.
I mean, the great thing about the only great thing about filling up in a diesel and a petrol station is when it's chucking it down with rain. you get a little bit of cover. I mean, there's you know, there's some CPOs out there who build some amazing, you know, location and sites with cover, but you know, every time, sometimes when it's chucking down with rain, I've still got 3 minutes. I've got to get out of the car, plug it in, you know, and I'm flashed.
The drowned rat.
But it's getting the experience right for everybody, and how large the charging network needs to be. How quickly can your vehicle charge? What do you mean? I've got a 250 kilowatt charger and I'm still now charging at 80 kilowatts an hour. Why is that? Okay, because actually there's some dynamics there which mean that the charger can't. So, but I need to be in Birmingham, you know, so it's not going to charge as quickly. I think this morning I put on 300 miles in just under 300 miles in just under 50 minutes. It was great. So, you know. So
the when it works well, and it needs to be working well, and the customer, the user journey needs to be seamless and simple, doesn't it? Really, when it comes down to it.
And I think also, we're so used to just, you know, spending 6 minutes, 8 minutes walking up to a petrol station, diesel station, you know, filling up quickly and having 600 miles. And in that moment, there's nothing about the environment. It's all about my personal journey. And, you know, and I was when I say, you know, I was a career mileage man, you know, 36,000 miles a year. That was me. But now you know, the way in which I drive, how I structure my time, when I charge the car, very, very different, you know. And I think, oh, well, isn't it nice that I can park my car outside and charge? But I think there's a whole sector. You look at all of our cities, you know, just take London. I'm a Londoner through and through. You take, you know, all the suburbs, they're all Victorian houses. How are we going to ensure that those families and people can charge their vehicles that are there? There's a load of great focus on fleets, but also there needs to be an awful lot of focus on the day-to-day driver. And so whether it's, you know, using lampposts, local authorities, it's tackling all those things simultaneously, really.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you know, for the terrace streets and stuff, there's always, like you say, there's lamppost charging. You know, there's kind of there's the curb, you know, kind of turbo charge stroke gully type options that actually where you're putting the channel in the pavement. There's, you know, there are innovative solutions that are coming through all the time. I know that Ben McDonald at Nodum, he's kind of got another innovative solution that he's coming up with. So it's growing all the time, isn't it? All of this.
Oh, and we're in it, so we're quite fortunate. We can see how that transitions. You know, even I think some of the German manufacturers, all they did was rip out an engine, put in a battery, and now they're innovating. The charge point, they're innovating, and I think there's the pressure on local authorities, DNOs. Everyone's got that pressure to actually increase this journey and make it a positive journey for everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really hope that, because I don't think the Levi funding, the local electric vehicle infrastructure funding, has been fully released for this wave, has it? So I really hope that comes through before any general election is called, because actually that might expand the timeline. Linda Grave was talking about this on a recent podcast as well, and I was thinking, don't need that.
We're sort of, I suppose our duty, we all have little parts to play in it. So, you know, our part is how do we, you know, solve some of the problems like incremental authorization. You know, how, you know, I want to put £20 in, but actually I'm paying for it as I go along. How do we solve that problem? But likewise, you know, the Victorian streets, how do we solve that problem? How, you know, well, it's okay because I've got a charge point right side of my door, so I'm okay. I'm in a Victoria. I've got a lamp post, so I'm okay. But what about the other people halfway down the street who need to charge? How do they do that? So yeah, fascinating journey that we're all going to go on, without a doubt.
I'd love to look. I'd like. It'd be great to be a fly on the wall and be able to see 10 years in advance. Do you know what I mean? And actually see what things will be like in the next 10 years. Because, like you say, technology and innovation is just it's moving with so much momentum, isn't it? So what we're talking about now, and probably the length of time that it takes for you to an EV will probably be
I'll drop.
massively reduced, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
As
But I've,
technology.
but I've learned to change. Do you know what I mean? Historically, I wouldn't dream of sitting still for an hour waiting for a charge. I'd go, I've just wasted 60 miles. So I've chosen to use my time differently. And have I become a better person because of it? I've adapted. And so I still get the work done, but I get it work done in a different way.
Yeah.
And also I say to myself, do I need to be there in person? It's acceptable now commercially to be on a call like this rather than in a studio, for example. So, and that's changed an awful lot. One of my old jobs, there'd be, why aren't you in the office? And now you go, actually, I can manage I can manage the results, I can manage remotely, it's better for everybody, better for the environment, my people get more done. So we've all got a part to play in the EV revolution, without a doubt.
I would
So,
say that the hybrid working or working from home is one good thing that came out of COVID, about out of all the lockdowns. Because it always seemed to me to be a bit ridiculous that everybody was expected to go into the company, and I could never understand why, especially kind of being a mum, actually, well, if I want to go and get my kids from school, I want to actually just be able to nip off for 15 minutes. Doesn't mean I'm going to doss around and do nothing afterwards. It means that I'm actually going to come back and, make sure the kids are okay, etc., etc. Do you know what I mean? It's this, but it's the same with, and I'm saying as a mum, but as a dad too, because, we just different needs for different situations. It's not one size fits all, is it?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely indeed. So I've sort of, so I can sleep well tonight now. I've got 320 miles stored in the car tomorrow. I'll tell you what the funny thing was. We had a really short break at Christmas time, and we'd gone skiing, and this is how the mentality changes. And we flew. So Elizabeth and we flew, went skiing. Anyway, we got to the resort, and there was a white Tesla, Model Y, English number plate. And having done that journey before several times in a ice car,
Yeah.
I did stop and ponder, and I thought, so how would I do that journey now? What would that look like?
Yes.
And so before, actually, what would happen is the kids would all jump in the car, Dad would drive the 600 miles non-stop cannonball run to the location, fall out of the car and, have 5 days skiing. But doesn't it seem nicer to be able to enjoy the journey, have proper healthy breaks, stop, charge, and actually ignore the fact I'm charging, just actually recharge myself, take a breather, refocus on the journey. And I think that is the EV difference. I think also I'm amazed, for everybody who doesn't know, the transition fleets are going through. You think it's all about the private individual, but the fleets are doing some amazing work. I was quite lucky to work with, I'm allowed to say DPD, in my firm. We're working with DPD. We're doing some conversations with them, but their commitment, I can also say we're working with Amazon, but their commitment to that journey is phenomenal to change. And yeah, so I think it's going to be really exciting, to be fair. And there's some really cool cars out there to drive. That's one thing certain.
Oh yes, You're not wrong there. There are some really cool cars. There was an Auto Trader set of videos that was shared on a group that I'm in, and it was basically petrol heads who were saying that EVs were rubbish, various different comments, and they tracked them down and they brought them into a circuit. And when one guy was in a Porsche Taycan, you know, and the guy who was driving it, and I can't think who it was, you should have seen that the actual passengers' faces, these petrol heads, they were, you know, oh, like, it's really boring to drive an EV and all that kind of stuff. And these guys were just lit up. It was all men, I have to say. You know, I would have loved to have seen some women in there and their faces as well. But actually, they're, you know, these guys, they kind of changed their point of view. And actually, bizarrely enough, so I actually sent it to my nephew, who's also very much of a petrol head. And I said to him recently, because somebody drove into his car and he had quite a bad accident. Luckily, him and his wife were okay, but the car's written off. And I kind of quipped and went, "Oh, time for an EV then." And he's like, "No, petrol all the way." So I sent him this video because I was just like, "Oh God," you know.
It's fascinating because, you know, why? Well, that's what I've always been used to. You know, and lots of German cars, and amazing. And then you get into a relatively boring, mundane, mediocre car, and they are phenomenal. And it's four-wheel drive, certainly the one I've got. And someone once said to me, it's the nearest thing you'll get to driving a motorbike. Now, I'm not a two-wheel guy unless it's a pedal power, but I do think they are. But it's not about that. You know, what do I love? Safety, technology, and some of the safety features of the new cars. They are superb. There's no doubt about it. So, but I think that's a transition, and until you get somebody in it and get them to go on that journey, a bit of a naysayer, but you know, there's another podcast about those people.
I know, exactly. And actually, just to kind of say, so the same guy, my nephew, he has driven an EV. I won't say which one it was, but his car was in dock being repaired for something else because he had problems with it. And actually, he was given an EV, a good one, a fast one, as a courtesy car, and he either did what you did when you got your Tesla, or nobody showed him. So he did not even know about regenerative braking and couldn't get his head around it. And actually, you have to. This is a learned thing, isn't it? It's a bit like your lady in Banbury charging again. It's kind of there's a responsibility at certain places, you know, dealerships or fleet management companies, or, you know, kind of leasing companies, that their responsibility is to make sure that the person taking that vehicle away is confident and comfortable and recognises that it is not the same as driving a petrol or diesel. Whether they say that they want help or not, there's got to be something that they're given, like some kind of information pack to help.
It's like the 4x4 cars. You know, you can have an off-road experience or you can have a track day. You just want someone to say, look, before I give you this vehicle, let me show you. I mean, I have to tell you, there's something I still haven't worked out. I did this thing with the car where, you know, on a location, the wing mirrors fold in.
Oh, right,
which is great,
okay.
Which is great. So you get to that GPS spot and bingo. Well, I can't work out how to turn it off. Okay. Every time I go past this spot, my wing mirrors are doing this all the time.
Oh my God.
So but there's no manual. So I've checked a couple of times. It's not easy. It's not intuitive, and that's the challenge. But that's just because it's just a different way of thinking, you know. So yeah, you know, it's transitioning from the world of ICE to EV is good. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you one final question.
Go on.
So, right, it's kind of a joint question, really. So how do you see, so if we just talk about specifically, well, do you know what? If we say, how do you feel or where do you see EVs and EV charging moving? What would you like to see it moving towards in the next 5-10 years? And actually, that's further ahead. But what do you think needs changing now?
Okay, so I think a magic wand, which I think a lot of people want, is speed of getting stuff in the ground. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Speed of getting, is enough power? Yeah. Is there planning proposals? Yeah. I've come from a retail background where I've been involved in land planning, so that's the challenge. There's a level of bureaucracy for the right reasons, but getting charge points in the ground quickly, that's the most important thing. That's the first thing. I think charge points in the right place, right location is important. There's no doubt about it. And in some respects, not pointing to the local authorities, but that they've got to be on that journey too. There's that, making sure their inner cities, everything that we want to do. And I see some great stuff about that, there's no doubt. Charge points naturally become quicker and faster, and that will be fine. And the vehicles will just get better. If this is where we are today, 10 years' time, we'll be streets ahead, So, yeah. But I think also it's the ease for the client. It's the ease. It's knowing those moments when you need 200 miles, that you get to the right location, the charge point works. The payment journey is seamless. It works. It's all of those, and that's not about PayThru. That's just about that whole seamless activity, and not there's stuff in the paper this weekend about talking about queues from the summers before. There'll be things of the past. That's no different from queuing up. We'll queue up at petrol stations every now and then when it's it's busy, and no one comments about it. But as soon as there's a challenge, it's just the duration. All these things will come down. We're the early adopters. That's the problem.
I didn't think I was, because obviously the ones who are the earlier adopters are kind of the pioneers, really, aren't they? We are the early adopters. They're the pioneers. It's about getting people to recognise that it is doable. And getting around. So I haven't got 300 miles. I'm not as lucky as you having 300 miles on my charge. But actually, it's about planning and making sure that I know where the charges are, where I need to charge, and have a kind of a bit of a backup plan. It's being bothered, isn't it, to actually do that?
Yeah, I think because I've been a career driver at times, I would always know where I'm going to fuel up. I just got to do exactly the same thing, but my mode of doing it is different. My medium is different. It's called electricity.
Yes.
And so I'd always do the same thing, and if I'm not prepared, all that happens is I've got to fill up at a very expensive motorway fuel station if I'm not prepared, and we all accept that, but we dismiss it because we're so busy trying to get to our destination. Perhaps the world of EV just means we've got to slow down a little bit more.
Do you know, everybody seems to, I've said this for years now, we're just always in a rush. Everybody's just in a rush all the time, aren't we? And we seem to, I kind of joke about the fact that how time flies, and that might be an age thing, but I kind of said to my husband, obviously we're in January recording this, and I said to my husband, we might as well leave the Christmas tree up because it'll be Christmas again in 2 weeks. It feels like it.
Yeah. My motto is always slow down, you'll go faster.
Yeah, it is. Slow down to speed up in a way. Yeah, absolutely.
You get more things done quick, if you slow it down slightly. Always.
Absolutely. No, I totally get you. But listen, it's been, for your first podcast, how's this gone for you?
Hey, I've really enjoyed it. I'm a career talker, so I can say all the time.
Well, why do you think I'm doing this?
Good.
I love getting to know people and talking to people. So, as long as people don't mind hearing me banging on a bit, then and getting on my orange box occasionally. Oh, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Lawrence. It's absolutely been really brilliant, and I hope we bump into each other very soon.
I'm sure we will. There'll be lots more stories, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And let's watch these things. Let's watch everything moving forward as quickly as we think it's going to be. But listen, thank you again. I'm going to say Goodbye to everybody else. So thank you for listening and watching, and I shall see you next time. Thanks for watching this episode of Electric Evolution. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay connected with us. And if you're inspired by our journey towards a sustainable future and want to support our mission on a monthly basis, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Your support really helps us to bring the latest insights and discussions in the world of clean energy, electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging and sustainability to you. If a regular subscription isn't what you're looking for, you can always consider buying us a coffee. Just head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Every cup helps us to keep the electric evolution moving forwards. And if you're curious about our work in the EV infrastructure sector at Full Circle Continuous Improvement, why not visit us at www.fullcircleci.co.uk to find out more. And if you want to send me a message, you can always email me on liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. And finally, please don't forget to share this podcast if it sparked your interest. And let's keep spreading the word about all of these topics that we're covering. So, until next time, see you soon. Bye!